fellow Toastmasters, distinguished guests, and anyone who has ever ventured in the world of herding cats, or what I like to call management. So I started out in a power plant as a technician a while back, and when I did, I saw many different kinds of leaders. Some I found were good, some of them not so good. But before I get into that, most of you may confuse the word manager with leader. Now, when I went into the Toastmasters manual, it said that a leader is someone that inspires others to follow them. Versus a leader, I apologize, it's the other way around. A leader inspires others to follow them, but a manager actually does managing or administration, similar to how Don, our treasurer here, he manages how our budget works for our club. So two different things. So some managers make good leaders, but not all managers are good leaders. So my first true manager that I recall working with, he was from China, and he had been from China about 40 years, very strong work ethic. Not very supportive. He believed in you need to figure out what you're doing and learn what you're doing on your own. And I'm here playing solitaire on my computer. Just leave me alone, get to work. So he would give you your job, you go out, you figure it out. Whatever you need to do, ask people what the problem was. At the time, I was a technician, and part of my job was troubleshooting. So I had to go around and do literally an investigation to find out why the power plant that I was working in was not working. Whenever I had a problem, and I won't use his name, even though I'm speaking of him in a pleasant way, whenever I decided to go to my supervisor and say, so I've been fighting this problem for 4 hours and I cannot resolve it. I need your help. And you get the, really? Need my help? Yeah, I need your help. Oh boy, all right. So he'd follow me out to the plant, he'd help me out with the problem, and then he'd make me realize how simple the solution was and remind me how much of a hassle it was for him to leave his office and go out there and fix this problem that I had. Like I said, he was my good supervisor. I had a bad supervisor, or actually he was a bad manager, and he was the opposite. He was very immature, he had just become a manager, and literally wanted to micromanage everything that I was doing. So if I took 5 hours to do a job, he would tell me that, shouldn't you have done that in 2 hours? Whenever he needed to make a decision, it was his way or the highway. Don't even contest what he made as his decision, because all you're asking for is embarrassment. And he was not afraid to belittle you in front of the rest of the team. Several times we went head to head. Eventually I decided, you know what? I don't belong here because I do not like to be forced into decisions. I think most of you can agree with me as well. But this is the way he operated. Another thing that he did was he showed a lot of favoritism because he was in a branch of the military and there were several members that were also in that branch of the military, which I will also not mention. And if you belonged in that, if you were a veteran of that military branch, you were his friends. He would basically invite you whenever he needed to make a decision, and then you'd go forward, not realizing that the other 75% of the team either was not in that branch of the military or not in the military at all. Fortunately for me, though, I used both of these leaders to make a final decision that I did want to go and herd cats. Alexander, you wonder why I did that?
Yes, I do.
I did that because I thought to myself, if I became a supervisor, that's one less of those bad supervisors that's going to be out there. Boy, was I in for a surprise. I wasn't that good. So the first problem that I had I was very introverted. I was a very shy person. So one of my first things that I remember, first lessons I learned was I would go into work, and when I go into work, there's a front way to go into work where I go through the shop where all my workers were, and there's a back way to go in that leads me right into my office. But I pushed myself to go in through the shop, say good morning to everyone, and get myself to work. One day, I was just having a rough day. I think I had just a rough night sleeping the night before, and I just kind of did one of these and just kind of walked through the shop and got into my office. Later on, I came out with the work, gave people their jobs, and then back into the office. And I'm sitting there for a couple hours, and it's now almost lunchtime. And usually, there's a couple stragglers that like to come back in. Hey, how you doing this morning? Nobody stopped by. And I wonder, what's going on? Why hasn't anyone stopped by? So as I sat there and I waited and I wondered, eventually someone came in and said, hey, how you doing? And I said, I'm doing okay. And he looks at me and he says, are you firing someone today? And I looked over at him and I said, no, I don't have no intentions of firing anyone today. And then I saw his shoulders relaxed, and he said, because we're out there trying to figure out which one of us you're going to fire today. Apparently when I came into work that morning, I was in such a grumpy mood that they all thought to themselves something was wrong. They didn't know what was wrong, and after about 4 hours, it had festered to the point where they decided somebody's going to get fired today. So that's the reason why no one came up to me and said anything. But over time, I learned more lessons. One of the first lessons I learned is that you have to be consistent, avoid favoritism, and finally, you want to make sure you're very consistent with your team. You get to know who the people are that are working for you. And if you find that you're still struggling, hurting all these cats, and you don't know what to do, if all fails, you know what you do? Buy everybody lunch.